JJ Perez with Inside Runner Sports, Greg Lucas, San Antonio Express News, UTSA football post-game wrap-up. The Roadrunners close out the 2019 home season with a 40-26 loss to Florida Atlantic. Greg, it seemed like the Roadrunners really didn't have an answer defensively for FAU's offense, and I guess we could start right there. They put up 500-plus yards, and they looked pretty unstoppable for most of this game.
I thought that was the biggest thing. The scoreline didn't always reflect it in the sense that there were a lot of long drives, really, for both teams.
Yeah.
So, but Florida Atlantic scored on, UTSA got one stop defensively in Florida Atlantic's first 8 drives. There was one where they missed a field goal. There was one that ended the half. But in terms of like forcing a punt or a turnover, it happened once in 8 drives. And that's why in the third quarter, what was it? It was 27-3.
Yeah.
So at that point, I thought the game was pretty much finished. And I mean, since Team McCormick has the fumble and then they run it in, that's when they got that 30-yard touchdown, and it felt like the game was
over.
It felt like the defense had checked out, and they really, came up with some more plays going forward, which was surprising to me. But at that point, it felt like the game was pretty much decided.
Yeah, the final score was kind of a little bit closer than what we've seen, which is kind of an opposite of what we've seen so far this season.
Right,
and
actually.
It just seemed like, that was my biggest concern, if UTSA could keep up, because this was the top scoring offense in Conference USA coming in, and it just, UTSA's offense, and let's transition to that, they looked like they sputtered a little today.
Yeah, the passing game just wasn't there for Lowell.
Right.
For Lowell and Narcisse. I don't know what was so different, but I remember there was one series where he missed an intermediate throw, like 10 or 12 yards.
Yep.
He bounced one on the second play, and right before that he had overthrown a guy in like the same range. And he didn't have it, and that's like never been his strong suit.
Right.
But he certainly didn't have that accuracy where it needed to be in this game. And we didn't get to see him take any deep shots. I mean, he finished with less than 100 yards. It seemed like maybe Florida Atlantic was more willing to give them some of the running game and take away that, seeing the success he had, because they ran the ball a lot. Like the first 2 drives, maybe it felt like it was like 12 runs against 4 passes or something. So they wanted to establish the run game, and it worked in spurts. Brendan Brady had a pretty big game.
I think he had his best game as a Roadrunner.
Yeah, and Sincere McCormick was getting some things going, but the 2 fumbles were really costly.
Yeah.
I mean, Florida Atlantic scored off both of those turnovers.
Right. Saw a little bit of Jordan Weeks today and kind of mop-up duty, and he came in and had 123 yards, I believe, passing, a touchdown and 2-point conversion, and I think that's probably the best I've seen him play in a game so far.
I want to watch it again because I was doing a lot of writing at that point, but when I looked up and saw or caught a replay here or there, he made some pretty good throws, and it's interesting. I don't know, do you anticipate that there's like a discussion to be had about who plays quarterback next week?
I just think they were looking for something to jumpstart this offense tonight. Obviously, Lowell was off. It seemed like that from the get-go, and I think sometimes you have those kind of games, and it's just one of those things where, hey, let's see what we got. Let's throw JoJo in here.
And I don't think anybody anticipated him being that productive.
Right.
I don't know if it changes what they do going forward. I think Lowell's earned the opportunity to keep playing for this last final game. They're both young quarterbacks, so they both need the reps just as much as the other one. So it'll be interesting to see, but I think it's Lowell's job if I had to guess. But we'll find out this week, hopefully.
The Roadrunners are officially mathematically eliminated from bowl eligibility contention. It was, and I mean, it was going to be a long shot regardless. Even if they did make 6-6, it was likely they probably needed to win 7 games to get an actual invite.
I think I just saw 8 teams are bowl eligible in Conference USA already. So,
I mean, looks like we're limping toward the end of another disappointing season here, and there are some bright spots. A lot of young players getting actions, but I mean, right now at this point of the season, there's more questions than answers, I think.
Yeah, can we talk about the post-game interview with Frank Wilson?
Yeah, let's do it.
So, I asked him first,
and then I asked him second.
Yeah, so I asked him, what was the feeling like to be eliminated from bowl eligibility, and he just started talking about
the seniors, yes,
and that the game was for them, and then I didn't really even catch it in real time, but afterwards he did say something that I was able to use in the story, which was the disappointing part was that we didn't get a win for them. Yeah. But other than that, there was not a ton of acknowledgement of the negative that happened in this game. So, I mean, it wasn't like it was about the bowl eligibility thing. It wasn't even like it was about the defensive thing, because he just gave credit to them on offense, which is okay, but they're a team in your conference. You shouldn't be that far behind where it's we have to give it up to these better players. And then it was towards the end, I believe, of the interview, he said, what was it? It was.
We want to play with some of the best teams in the conference.
And I thought we did that.
Yeah.
Did you see that?
For the most part, I didn't. But again, I mean, the final score was a lot closer than kind of what the game indicated. And I think it's kind of perplexing because obviously Frank's always on the positive side of things. But they had this goal of reaching bowl eligibility. They've talked about it all season, even through kind of the up and down, the low part of the season.
Right.
And I think maybe because it's senior day and they didn't play that well, I just kind of glossed over it, and it's one of those things where it again, more questions than answers.
I just think I don't think it looks good when you're saying, like, when you're treating it like it was a positive, because then what is the standard for your program at that point? If this is like a day that we don't have to be that upset about if you're a fan of this team, you know? I don't know. I didn't really get it. I was kind of confused.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like I have to go back and listen to the interview again and see how I could have asked better questions. You know, like, I have to watch the.
It's your fault.
I can't.
Maybe it's my fault.
There had to be a way that, like, that just doesn't feel like that was it. Like, that doesn't feel like that was the story of the game. So I don't know.
So the Roadrunners head to Ruston next week to close the 2019 schedule. The Bulldogs are a very stout team, and
they lost today. Is that right? I forget.
Yeah, I mean, UTSA's never won there in all the years they played there, so it's going to be another stiff challenge for UTSA. And I guess let's just address the elephant in the room. It's the end of another disappointing season, and there are going to be questions about Frank Wilson's job and will he return in 2020.
I think it's an interesting dynamic because with the way the offense has been so bad for the last year and a half before this season, that was what everybody was watching this year. It's like, okay, well, we were the worst offense in college football last year.
Right.
So how well do we move the ball, and what does that look like on that end? And the fact that they've improved on that end, I think, has probably masked that the team might be worse overall than it was last year.
Like the defense, it feels like the
defense is
taking
really
a step back.
Not good. I'm coming into this week. They were 128th in defensive S&P Plus out of 130 teams, and they play like it a lot of the times too. I mean, we just talked today about how, Florida Atlantic, not only the yardage total, but just how efficient they were with scoring or getting into scoring position on every drive. I think the numbers aren't going to look any better coming away from this one. So I think that's probably just because everybody's focus. It's like the defense is coasting on the success of a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Where it's like everybody got it in their head, like, oh, the defense is going to be good. We just need to move the ball, and it's like not necessarily. Like, the defense is the biggest issue at this point. Honestly, I feel better about the offense than the defense.
Yeah, I think my take is they kind of threw some guys into some positions, moved some guys around, and it didn't on the defensive side, and it just really hadn't panned out, to be honest with you.
But I mean, what do you expect? Like, you can't just not have linebackers.
Right.
That's going to be problematic.
Yeah.
And I mean, it would have been ideal if Andrew Martell and it was McFarland week one, and then Clarence Hicks actually looks really good.
Yeah.
I don't know if today he had his best game. I'd have to look at the numbers. I don't recall like a bunch of plays that jumped off, maybe one or two. But and he seems like a good guy there, and that's another converted player. But just to not have answers at that position is the biggest issue. And we talked last week about how the secondary was probably a lot responsible for giving up some big plays, and the defensive line gets a lot of credit throughout the year for being the deepest and most talented unit on the team, and maybe that's still true, but it's not like they're consistently creating havoc in the backfield either.
There's not a lot of production there.
Or that the run games have been so, like, other teams haven't been able to get going at times. So, I think there's a lot of concerns on the defensive end, and maybe, like, the way people were choosing to evaluate this team coming into the year with the focus on offense might have distracted them from seeing, like, some of the glaring issues on that side.
Yeah, I guess it just goes to your point. What is the kind of the standard at this point with the program?
Right.
Obviously, they're trying to turn the corner here, and the offensive woes. I mean, another 400-yard game. That doesn't feel significant, but compared to where they were last year, I mean, that's the best stretch in 2 seasons we've seen here.
So this is one of the, like, I'm still kind of figuring out how I want to phrase this, but something I want to ask on Monday is, well, if you're going to just kind of give it up to their offense for having these great players, is it not expected that you would have great players?
Where are your
on
great
defense?
players?
Right.
Yes.
Like, is that not are you just Are you saying UTSA is never going to be better than FAU? Is that that the concession that you're making, or
we got to work on that phrasing?
Is there a reason you cannot have more talented guys than them?
Yeah. Who knows, right? I mean, I think that's a fair question, and it's just, I think the aspect in which you look at things and what's successful and what isn't, and I mean, at the end of the day, to me, it's come down to the wins and losses. And I mean, you could put up the yards and force the turnovers, but you got to be able to come out with the wins eventually at some point.
And it's, again, you got to think about the schedule. We've talked about it to death, but the teams they've beaten are not good teams. I guess Rice just beat North Texas today, so that's cool, I guess. But the teams they've beaten are not some of the top teams in the conference, and certainly not in the FBS. They're not in that conversation. So, wins and losses are great, and you can say you're +1 versus last year, but is the team really better? I don't know.
And that's what we'll probably be asking at the end of the game next week, and as we head into the off season, it will be a interesting one, probably the most intriguing off season we've had in recent history. And I mean, it's there's a lot on the line here. I think this next game and these next few weeks to see what happens with the future of this program.
Yeah, you really don't know whose mind is made up already, if a close game or even a win next week matters that much.
Right.
But it couldn't hurt the case if they came out and played well. That's for sure.
Yeah, I agree. So what's your knee jerk on what happens next week?
I think Louisiana. I mean, I don't.
A lot like today.
I'm no Louisiana Tech expert, but I think just based on the quality that we've seen from UTSA, I would think that it could be another pretty one-sided game. And, UTSA will probably have flashes like they do, and I think the offense can move the ball in spurts like they have, but just consistently being able to get stops or to be able to score to keep up with some of these teams they're facing, I don't see it.
And I believe next week, both you and I are hoping to talk to Athletic Director Lisa Campos on the record to get an update on, I guess, the future of the program. Also, I guess, the race facility. We're supposed to hear something this month, and I don't know if we're going to end up hearing that this month or next month or the following month, but there are a lot of things happening with this program, and it is a very interesting time in UTSA's history.
There's a lot for you guys out there to stay tuned for.
All right.
All of these things are in the pipeline.
That'll wrap it up from the Alamo Dome for the 2019 season, Greg. I appreciate you coming on, and we'll both be interested next week, so we'll wrap the season up then. See you guys then.